Hey everyone, welcome to the SaaS Sessions podcast. This is our fifth season, and we cannot thank you enough for the constant support and the feedback that all of you have given us. We've launched the SaaS exclusive job board a few months ago, and as of today, when we are recording this episode, we have helped like 50 people get interviews at different SaaS companies in India. So if you're someone who's looking for a job, you can check out many roles that are listed on the portal by by companies like MoEngage, ChargeBee, G2 Crowd, Whatfix, and more, right? And if you're hiring at your SaaS company, so you can also go to the portal and add your listing for free. This portal is accessible to all the 14,000 plus listeners of the podcast, plus our website visitors, and plus to our newsletter subscribers. So check out the link in the description to visit the SaaS exclusive job portal. Coming to our today's guest, Arjun Pillai. Arjun was on the season 3 of this SaaS Sessions podcast last year. In that episode, we talked about his company Insent.ai and the conversation marketing industry. In June 2021, Insent got acquired by ZoomInfo. By the way, this is Arjun's second exit. His first exit happened with Profoundis, which was acquired by FullContact back in 2016. So many congratulations to you, Arjun, and the entire team at Insent for the acquisition. And it's such a great pleasure to welcome you to the podcast once again.
Thanks a lot, Sunil. Great to be back here again. Thanks for having me.
Awesome. So, Arjun, just to break the ice, right? Like I did talk to a few few of my friends at Insent, and they told me a great story about how did he actually break the acquisition news to the entire team, right? So, I know the story, but can you tell it to the listeners?
Sure. Yeah. I mean, breaking the news to our team, especially for an acquisition, is kind of an interesting challenge in itself, right? When we were driving Insent, we were a super transparent team. In fact, transparency is one of the company vision that we were holding very, very true to ourselves. And as a person, also, I want to be more transparent with my team. But an acquisition kind of binds you because of the legal challenges that you're not supposed to tell this to everybody, right? And many cases, this thing can fall through and you don't want your folks to get disappointed because of the whole thing happening. So you cannot really tell the team until you can.
Yeah.
So what happened is I obviously discussed with my co-founder, we were in sync, we kept going. And then we got the first level of leadership kind of into the circle a few weeks before the whole thing was going public. And we got them up to speed, told them what's happening, and kind of gave them a rough timeline. So kind of went transparent with them. And then we were supposed to have an all hands meeting on a like in the morning someday. And we were all set for that meeting in terms of how to announce it. But what happened is, as a company, ZoomInfo moves very fast, right? And everyone was so excited about the whole thing, and COVID was happening. So some of the folks did not have a company-owned laptop. So ZoomInfo sent new laptops to our folks, anticipating a delay because of COVID lockdown, which the slowdown didn't happen. And the laptop ended up going to a person's house without him realizing about the acquisition. And he was like, why did I get a laptop now? Like, so it's like it was totally outside everybody's control, right? Because the COVID lockdown was in effect in that state, in that city, but somehow this courier got there, right? And then we kind of preponed our announcement meeting a little bit by a few hours and announced the thing and got everybody up to speed. So that's the interesting story in terms of how the news got broken to the team.
Oh wow, that's so exciting. I know, but great news definitely, right? And this I think like ZoomInfo is killing it in terms of acquisition with companies, right? Like I think they're playing it very strategically. But I think so. Yeah, talking about Insent, I mean, we were talking about it in the last episode, and I think that in that time you were just second year of building the company, and I guess you didn't even complete like 3 years of building Insent, and it got a very great exit. So like can you walk us through like what happened, how did the exit was planned? Because I think when we discussed it about the last time, you had like future plans for Insent, and in the last episode we discussed this, and then now suddenly like there is an exit. So
Yeah.
like what happened? Who reached out to whom? Did you like reach out to ZoomInfo, or did ZoomInfo reached out to you? So like how did
Yeah.
everything happen?
Yeah. The acquisition was definitely not in the plan, as in, I was not building it to
Yeah.
sell the company. We have received other acquisition offers. I think this was the fifth or sixth one that I got. The others that I got, I didn't even get on the call. I pretty much said, nah, no, not happening. You're right. The Insent as a company started at end of 2018, but Insent as a product essentially started March of 2019. That's when we decided that we're going to do chat, right? And then by March 2021, we pretty much decided to sell. We were going through the process. So it is just 2 years and maybe a couple of weeks or something like that.
Yeah.
Very, very fast. And it was a very good outcome also for the time that we have spent and whatnot. So what happened is I've known Henry, the CEO and founder of ZoomInfo, for a long time. Henry is a CEO that I've always looked up to because, he started his company right after college, pretty much. 2007, bootstrapped it for 7 years, and then started raising the rounds. And he went and bought Rain King and ZoomInfo and kind of collated that space with ZoomInfo as like rank 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. And then there are some competitors a little bit. So it's what he has achieved as a founder and as a CEO is very aspirational for any founder, basically. So I've been a huge fan of the way he has gone about his business. I reached out to Henry back in 2018, February, if I remember right. After I left my last company, I reached out to him cold on email saying that, hey, I've been in the data space. I've been doing some interesting things. Do you want to catch up and see how I can add value? That was the time I was consulting and I want to learn kind of a phase. He is a very abrupt guy in terms of when you reach out, he pretty much quickly responds. We had a conversation, and one day I was in Denver at that time, 7:30 a.m. my time, I get a call. Hey Arjun, this is Henry Schuck. And he offered me a job. This was 2018, and because of my data background, right? That's why he wanted me to consider a job. At that time, I wanted to do something of my own. I said, Henry, no, I would like to do something of my own. But it has been a big privilege that he called up and offered a job, right? Then he actually ended up writing a recommendation letter for me to help me with the visa, which was a very kind gesture from his part. He spent time. At that time, Discover.org was already like a 70 million ARR company.
Yeah.
So I've known him as a business person, and I was and a little bit on the personal front with that 2018 experience of mine. Then I have this habit of writing emails about industry trends that I noticed to important people in that industry. So example is Henry in this case. Henry is driving this data company with full speed ahead. When I see an industry trend that I think is valuable for him, I would send out an email to him saying, hey, Henry, did you watch this new thing happening? There is this new trend called whatever happening, right? And we kept in touch like that. I sent one of such emails, nothing to do with Insent, totally something else. I think it was some startup in Canada raising some money was the topic. And I was kind of connecting that to a trend in data that I'm seeing. So he responded back quickly to me and said, Arjun, that's interesting, but what you are doing is more interesting to me. Why don't we catch up? So interestingly, chat was something that he was looking at. And we can talk a little bit about his vision for ZoomInfo, and that's why he was looking at chats. So when he saw that I was doing chat, he looked at the website, he started playing around with the chat. So one day I was doing my work, and the Insent chat alerted me on Slack saying that somebody important is on the website. We have some filters we have some ABM targets that we have set up. ZoomInfo is ABM target. So when somebody from ZoomInfo comes in, it'll send an alert, and I am active on chat. So I got an alert. I jumped in and said, hey, Arjun here. And Henry's like, hey, Arjun, this is Henry Schuck. The product looks really cool. And that's how we caught up about Insent. He was very transparent right from the word go, right? He was like, this is the space I am interested in. I would make an acquisition in this space for sure. It's interesting that you're doing this. The product looks cool. How about we chat? My experience with Henry and ZoomInfo as a company and my knowledge of ZoomInfo as a company and the space gave me a lot of confidence to engage.
Nice.
That's how that engagement happened, and both the parties needed certain things. Obviously, there wasn't a ton of negotiation for that matter.
Right.
We spent like a good time, myself and Henry, talking about it, and we aligned. It made a lot of sense. I want to stop there. I've been answering for a long time. So
That's okay.
but,
This is an interesting story.
yeah. Yeah. The strategic vision that he drew in front of me made 100% sense. Right?
Nice.
And then that aligned with everything else, made it easy for me to say yes. And then obviously I consulted with my co-founder. All of that happened in the background too.
Nice. That's very interesting story, as I mentioned. And who knew in 2018 that you will end up working together with Henry in 3 years later.
Yeah,
So
I've actually thought that, like when I sold my first company, ZoomInfo would have been probably a good company to sell my first company to. Right? I've thought at that time, I didn't know much about Discover.org because Discover.org was still like a boutique, small data set, high quality company in 2014, haven't raised a round kind of a company,
right.
probably doing $30 million in ARR or something like that. So it was not that big. And so I didn't know them and Henry at that time. But I've thought back that probably for that company also, ZoomInfo would have been, or Discover.org would have been a good strategic exit.
Great. And I think the kind words that you spoke about Henry, I think I've never spoken to him, but I've seen a few sessions that he has given. But definitely sounds like an interesting CEO, right? Like who is very down to earth. Like he's communicating to you on Insent's product, on Insent's chat, and talking about acquiring or just talking with you on using the product, giving a feedback. I mean, that's really like insane for a CEO at that level to do, right? So that's amazing. But like in an acquisition, right? Many things or many factors would come into play in deciding whether you want to sell or not. As you mentioned that this was like the fifth or sixth company that approached Insent to acquire Insent, and then obviously like a few factors as you mentioned, like you knew Henry, you knew ZoomInfo, you knew how maybe he pitched you the right vision, which kind of aligned with what you envision Insent to be, right? And there would have been like a bunch of other factors behind the scenes that you would have gone in your mind, right? Like it's your company, right? And as you mentioned that you didn't build the company to sell, right? Like as we had discussed in last episode as well, like there are some future plans that you had. So what were the factors that kind of helped you decide, apart from the ones that you already mentioned, right? Like you knew Henry, you knew ZoomInfo, the vision's kind of like, I know these three are like very, very big when it comes to like, deciding who you want to partner with, but like what behind the scenes factors that helped you decide that, hey, this okay if we exit now, and let's maybe build the product inside ZoomInfo when we go there.
It's interesting. The way I always think about acquisition as a founder is I'm building this house, the company is equivalent to my house, and I am building this house to live in this house, right? So I would use the right quality cement, I would use the right quality materials. But if someone makes a really good offer to this house, that makes sense to me, then I may sell, right? That's how I think about it. So I'm not building to sell, but I will not say I'm never gonna sell, right? That's my baseline. Now, in terms of an acquisition, I think I considered like 3 or 4 factors. The first one, company is equivalent to team as far as I am concerned. So the whole team joined ZoomInfo, and that Henry was very clear that, hey, everyone is gonna join ZoomInfo, and everybody received, they got stock options, got got liquidated into cash for early employees, and they got more stock options, some salary hikes. So they got really good package, right? And I think, except me, I don't even think anybody else was part of an acquisition before. So for most of my team members, it was the first experience. So my team was really taken care of. And I knew that ZoomInfo was a really good brand name they can have in the resume. There's a lot of opportunity inside the company to grow all of that. And I'm seeing that panning out right now. So that's exciting. So team was one. Product was the second one, right? What are they going to do with this product? Are they simply going to break the product? No. So in this case, Insent has been already rebranded into ZoomInfo Chat, and it's reaching to like thousands of customers now.
Right.
We have 20,000 plus customers. So the product is going to get into the hands of so many companies, which if I do it by myself would have taken me years and years. So that was the second thing, right? The product is, eventually we build products to get to people, and that's happening effectively, right? So that was two. The third thing was, does it make sense for the investors? Because investors are a key part of the journey. In this case, it made sense to the investors. We had conversations, they were happy about it. All of them believed that we could go alone and do more. I also believe that, but then, there is also that opportunity cost. There is also that risk factors, everything considered. It's always a trade-off kind of a decision, right? But it made sense to the investors in a good way. So investors. The fourth was founders. Founders were taken care. So I am today a strategic. I'm an SVP at ZoomInfo, directly reporting to Henry. And my co-founder Prasanna, who was the CTO of the company, is the VP of engineering at ZoomInfo, reporting to the CTO of ZoomInfo. So founders were taken care, right? Whether it is in terms of the monetary benefits, whether it is in terms of the role, exciting things that we are able to do, and the learning that we are getting, right? To operate at ZoomInfo scale, sitting right next to people like Henry, Chris Hayes, and the entire executive leadership team. That learning is immaculate. I'm learning quite a bit every day. So, if you, and there are no downsides, right? It's not like I have some draconian rules in my agreement that prevents me from doing anything. It's not like I am shackled for years and years to come. And I'm just 32 now. So I have more companies in me. It's not like Insent was the last idea that I ever had, hopefully. So there was no downside. There were a lot of upsides. And it was a genuinely exciting proposition that was in front of me from Henry, that's why I decided to sell.
Oh, that's very amazing. And I really like the fact that, in the 4 factors, you put team as the first factor that you had thought of, because, as you rightly said, right, like what the company is built of the people who work there, right? Like team, product, investors, and founders, like in that order. So really,
that's how I think about it. That's that's how I think about it. It's I think if you ask me, that is the right way to think about it. Because in most of these cases, right, this is not like a one-time thing. Imagine that I cut off investors, right? Because we were still early. It's not like investors have a ton of rights, right? There are people who, there was like one person who could have blocked the deal, but it's not going to happen that easily. So I could steamroll them and think about like, I don't care about investors and what they get. But it's a long journey. My first investors invested in my second company, right? And that was even before I named my company. On the day I incorporated, they put money, right? That is because I had a really good relationship working with them. Even in this case, my legal team sent out the to be signed documents, and they started receiving signatures like in the next 10 minutes. And there were like pages and pages of documents, but my investors trusted me so much that they did not want to sit down and read like 80 pages of document. They were comfortable signing, trusting a word that I gave. So I think about all this, whether it is with your team, whether it is with your investors, these are ongoing relationship. And if you do right by them over a period of time, you will reap more benefits that way. So whether you think in a selfish fashion or not in a selfish fashion, it still makes sense to consider team and investors first.
Interesting. That's true. Yeah. And so yeah, again, coming back to these four factors, right? Like team, product, investors, and founders, right?
Yeah.
So since you have been a part of two acquisitions, Arjun, uh, what would you, suggest to any founders who's listening to this episode now, right? Like if they receive an acquisition offer, and now, I've seen that many companies as they grow, right? And because of the SaaS market and the market in general, there's a lot of money which has come in, right? Like the many companies have grown exponentially, and they don't want to like go out and maybe build a product easy to like just acquire a company and integrate the product inside, right? And this has been happening for a long time, but now there's more acceleration to this process, right? So companies in India, companies in US might be getting acquisition offers. So how should a founder react, right? Like once they get an acquisition offer, like straight away you said no to the first 4 or 5 offers that you got, but obviously like you had some experience in doing it one time before, right? And maybe now you have more experience in doing it. But then once the right offer came, you knew, like Henry, you knew ZoomInfo, you knew the industry, you knew the vision matched your vision, right? But not many founders would, maybe in the first instance, would not know, right? So what suggestions you would give them uh, to, like when they receive such offers, right? Like obviously like they have to worry about the team, the product, the investors and founders, but just talking about the founder, right? Like because in the end he or she will is the one, the founder is the person who's going to be eventually driving the acquisition, right? Like obviously the team is going to follow, the product is going to follow, the investors are going to follow, and the co-founders are going to follow, right?
Yeah.
So what advice or what suggestions would you give to those founders?
Yeah. Before I answer that, I want to quickly backtrack and say that when I say team and then product is equivalent to customers in my mind, just so that
Yeah,
I'm explicit about it. Because
yeah,
when I say product is not going down, it means that I'll be able to continue to serve my existing customers. That's a key part
yeah.
of it. I should have
Mhm.
been more explicit when I talked. So just want to get
Yeah,
that explicit and out of the way. And answering this question specifically, so it's a very subjective decision, right? There is no right decision, or there isn't like a set of exact filters that you can put, and a system will spew out saying that, hey, yes, you should sell, or no, you shouldn't sell. It's a very subjective thing. um, One thing that I have found helpful, obviously the who is offering that exit is very critical, right? Like what kind of what stage you are in is also very critical. And you should know which stage you are in. So there are ways in which companies can exit. Let's see, how can I, one thing that I would always recommend is have people who you can talk to if and when such an instance comes up.
right.
So after my first exit, multiple founders from India reached out to me, either just like that or when they had an opportunity to sell the company. And in many cases, I've been able to help them out a little bit by giving my 2 cents and then letting them decide, right? Like obviously I cannot make a decision for them, and I don't prefer taking a decision for them.
Mhm.
So that's probably the first thing. You should have somebody who around you who have been there and done that.
Mhm.
So in my case, in this case also, I've had those people. So I spoke to them, I took their thoughts. That's probably the first thing. The second thing that I would say is always have a decision-making framework for you. And that this is not specifically about the acquisition, but anything when a CEO or a founder looks at something, right? I'm a huge believer of models and decision-making frameworks. What I gave you, like 1, 2, 3, 4, which is team, product/customer, investor, founder, that's in some way a decision-making framework in my mind, right? That is what is important to me. So every founder should be able to understand what is important to them. Is driving your own company by yourself the most critical thing that you have? Then you cannot sell, right?
Yeah.
Because once you sell, it's not your company. So, so you got to be clear about your priorities, right? In my mind, learning is a huge priority, right? And ZoomInfo gives me a big opportunity. So
Right.
I'm just giving examples. So have people to talk to. Secondly, have a decision-making framework. If I am going to get an offer, what would I place? What would be my lens that I will place on top of this? And which are the angles in which I will start to slice and dice this whole thing so that I know what is important, right? It boils down to some version of, what happens to the company, I mean, the team, what happens to the product, how much money am I going to make? What is going to be my role? How much of a lock-in period I will have? How am I going to get the money? Is it stock or stock options? Is it a public company acquiring me or a private company acquiring me? So there are far too many variables. And then your decision-making frameworks will be a bullet list of the top things.
Right.
You are not going to get everything that you need. It'll never happen in any deal, right? I believe that a good deal will make both the parties a little bit uncomfortable, right? So there will be some things that will make you uncomfortable. There'll be some things the other party will go through in terms of being not so comfortable about. So that's how I would look at an acquisition from a founder standpoint.
Definitely. And I think, if any founders are listening to this, feel free, I would say, to reach out to Arjun. If Arjun is okay with that, because he is mentioning, like, you should have people to talk to about this, right? Like when this happens, and who better to talk to who has gone through the process, right? Like not only Arjun, but many people in the Indian SaaS ecosystem, right? And obviously like have a like decision making process for each, right? Like, and as you mentioned, like it will depend on like hundreds of factors, which will be like very different for each acquisition, each instance. It will be very different. So really interesting. And
Yeah.
before we close, we just want to know, like, how does Incents, as you mentioned, right, like divisions align, right, somehow. So how does Incents product, like talking about um, the product and the customers, like align with ZoomInfo, right? Like you mentioned, ZoomInfo has already rebranded it to ZoomInfo Chat.
Yeah.
So like how does it strategically fit into the entire ZoomInfo universe, right? Like they have Chorus and as well, which they acquired recently,
Yeah.
and they have a bunch of acquisitions before, and they have few internal different products as well, right? So how does that fit into where ZoomInfo wants to go, or where ZoomInfo wants to be as a company?
Yeah. So for founders who are listening to this, and if you want to, so I'm going to answer this in two ways. Sunil. The first one, the first question I made up myself that I'm going to answer is, what should founders do if they want to exit? The second part that I'll answer your specific question as well.
Yeah.
Because it's actually pretty aligned. If you want to get acquired, I didn't do this intentionally, but this ended up happening, and I'll explain how. If you are looking to get acquired, you want to sell the company, the way you approach that is you have to figure out what does that end state look like, right? It's like how many companies are there who can acquire you, and depending on the stage it varies, right? Like if you're a super small company, then a super large company, it's unlikely that a Salesforce will acquire you. So depending on which stage you are, you always have an ideal set of acquirers that you can go after. And then the next question that you need to ask yourself is, how do I add value to their overall picture? And then get into a relationship with that person and that company. And it typically takes somewhere between 6 months to like 18 months or something for you to get on the other side. So that's how you approach an acquisition. If you want to, understanding that end goal and how you are offering adds to the strategic value of this acquiring company is the most critical piece. And then the relationship and those kinds of things, that those are the more easier parts to figure out actually. Right. So that's how you would approach it. In my case, this whole thing happened without Henry or me realizing it. So ZoomInfo, as many of the folks know, is the world's best data platform, or used to be the world's best data platform, right? Sales intelligence, all kinds of data, ZoomInfo houses the best. But over the past couple of years, or maybe a little bit more, ZoomInfo has been evolving to be a lot more than a data company, right? So the public vision that Henry has drawn out which I really love, I completely agree, is that ZoomInfo is becoming the modern go-to-market platform. So
Right.
there is like that data layer, the sales intelligence layer, then there is an orchestration layer, and then there is the engagement layer, right? And if you look at the engagement layer of ZoomInfo, before acquiring Insent itself, ZoomInfo had another acquisition, and there is ZoomInfo Engage, which is kind of like a sales enablement platform, like an outreach or a sales draft competition. So um, so that was one engagement layer, and chat is another piece in that engagement layer. So there is the underlying data that powers these solutions to be a lot efficient. Think about it, right? If I'm using a sales enablement platform, the first thing that I need is data, right? So it already has that data. And that makes our ZoomInfo Engage pretty much a really amazing platform. Think about chat. There are chatbots, but the intelligence of a chatbot comes from the underlying data. ZoomInfo has that data. So we plugged ZoomInfo data into ZoomInfo Chat, and chat is becoming the best in breed. So that's how it made sense. Chat is a really efficient engagement layer, and going forward, pretty much every B2B company will have a chat component or a chat as a channel for customer acquisition. And by integrating ZoomInfo's amazing data set, ZoomInfo Chat becomes probably the world's best B2B chat platform. That's how the strategic alignment of this platform happens. And ZoomInfo has a lot of these B2B customers, over 20,000 of them. So there is a natural fit. We could take ZoomInfo Chat or Insent Chat. We could make it into ZoomInfo Chat and then plug it into our existing 700 sellers, and boom, it goes to 20,000 customers, right? So it just makes sense in terms of that amplification ability. So those are the strategic, I mean, there is more, but I'd say those three are the engagement layer, data powered chat, making chat better, and then efficient go to market. Those are the three main strategic alignments.
I think that's amazing, and I think you're gonna give Drift a run for their money now. And I think it's gonna be a really great competitor to Drift plus Clearbit integration, right? Like, because I think Drift internally uses Clearbit for powering their data, and now like ZoomInfo has its own chat. So it's going to be a real interesting space.
Yeah, the market is very big. So yes, we are competing with several players, but the market is pretty big. It's the awareness of chat platform is very high, and we get inbound requests all the time. Even as Insent, we were generating a lot of inbound requests as well. As ZoomInfo, obviously, it has gone through the roof. So I think it's going to be a very exciting time in terms of also we are in this unique situation, right? It's not about what was chat. It is about what would be the chat of the future, right? What would B2B conversations in real time in the future look like? So having a company like ZoomInfo with all its resources, we could push the horizon of what it means to do a B2B conversation. Right? So it also gives us an opportunity to kind of go beyond what is already there. So we don't necessarily think about the competition much. We just think about what we do and do it really, really well.
Yeah, no, makes sense. And I think ZoomInfo's acquisition was an inbound request to Insent. I mean, Henry coming onto the platform and chatting with you on the bot, so on the platform itself. So I think that was like an inbound.
We made a pretty big sale that way.
Yeah, totally. So I mean, this is an interesting discussion, and Arjun, as you know, like we can go on and on talking about, but just coming on to the last bit of the podcast, like we have a lightning round. Generally, I ask 3 questions, but since you've already been on the show once, I have like 2 little different questions for you. So are you ready for those?
Yeah, let's make it easy, but yeah.
Cool. So if you could invest in any SaaS company, right, like right now, which one would you pick and why?
Oh, you mean across the world, anywhere I could pick?
Yeah, I mean, yeah, that's okay.
Interesting. I don't want to tell a name, man, but here is what I'm pretty curious about. I've been a believer, and I have been observing the whole product-led growth motion quite a bit. Like I said, I'm a believer. So I am looking at how some of these product-led companies are evolving. I think there's a, I mean, when I say product-led growth company, I don't mean companies like Slack who is using product-led. I mean, there are a new set of companies which are enabling PLG companies in an efficient way, right? Think about Pendo. Pendo enables product side of PLG, right? Like I can figure out the product use data, and Pendo is strong on PLG. But think about the go-to-market motion of PLG. It is significantly different. So
Right.
I'm pretty excited about the set of companies which are going to enable the GTM side of PLG. So I would be curious, and I would love
I
to
think
be
I
associated.
kind of know which company you're hinting at in a way,
No,
but
there are more. You'd be surprised. I'm not thinking about one. Just when you said that sentence, 5 companies actually, because
okay.
I'm closely following this, and
Uh-huh.
I'm discussing with investors, VCs in Bay Area who are looking at it, who have been in the MarTech space. I mean, like enlightening discussion. So there are a lot of companies, and I'm very, very excited about what's going to happen in that space.
I think that will be an interesting space to watch.
Yeah.
Given that you are focusing on it, so I think I have to focus on it because it's gonna be a next big thing.
Sure. Yeah. No, I'm a believer of buyer enablement, and PLG is, in my opinion, a very big step towards buyer enablement. So, yeah,
Makes sense.
please do look at it. More people evangelizing it, the faster it grows.
Yeah, interesting. And then the last one for the lightning round. What is that one tool, Arjun, that you cannot live without?
One platform that I cannot live without.
Yeah.
Oh, yeah. I mean, Zoom is huge, obviously. Without Zoom, Slack, I spend a lot of time on Slack. But these are all the, let me tell you something that people don't really look at. I use a tool called CleanShot to take my screenshots on Mac. I really like the scroll feature of that. So I can take a scrolling screen capture on CleanShot. So I really like it,
Oh, nice.
especially, so outside the common stuff that people tell,
Yeah.
CleanShot is probably something that you really
No, definitely. I think I am also a clean shot user, so I know that
there you go.
sometimes you have to like take a full page screenshot and you just need
Exactly.
something to do it, right? But
Yeah.
amazing. So yeah, I think this has been really great. So thanks a lot, Arjun, for once again coming on the show and sharing these amazing insights, completely different insights, than what we had discussed in the last episode. Lot of learnings for a lot of founders who would be receiving acquisition offers or might have got acquisition offers, and they could
Yeah.
get some more insight. And again, if you're a founder who is listening to this, feel free to reach out to Arjun, I would say. I'm going to include his LinkedIn in the podcast description, so you can connect with him on LinkedIn and say hi.
Absolutely. Yeah. Happy to pay it forward. Yeah.
Yeah,
Hit me up on LinkedIn.
great. So yeah, well, thanks a lot, Arjun, for taking time and doing this.
Thanks a lot, Sunil. Always pleasure talking to you, man.